What is it to love someone who is awful? The problem is, you still love them. Can we truly separate the art from the artist? I feel like this is an age-old question that circulates every 3 months whenever one of our quote-unquote favorite artists does or says something problematic, which causes us to briefly pause to reflect on how we should process the new information presented to us.
R. Kelly, Diddy, and Kanye West. Those are 3 very polarizing people that some people really refuse to listen to, and some people still might listen to them. But it's like, okay, if you won't listen to their music directly, like their own song, what about a song by another artist they're featured on? Or what about a song that was written or produced by them? And especially those 3 artists in particular, because they wrote and produced so many songs for so many different people that I feel like it would be hard to weed it out. So it's like, where do you draw the line here? Like, if you're boycotting Kanye, are you still gonna listen to You Don't Know My Name by Alicia Keys because he produced that? Like, are you gonna skip every Mace or Biggie song that Diddy is on? Are you gonna skip listening to You're Not Alone by Michael Jackson because R. Kelly wrote and produced that? I also think it's like a personal moral judgment call of how you judge that person based off the things they did or are alleged to have do. Because again, gray area and slippery slope, because if you like stop listening to every artist who's like problematic or done something bad, there's gonna be a lot of music that you're not listening to.
The Me Too movement, which gained widespread popularity in 2017, led to the Weinstein effect, which helped to expose and rightfully take down some of the most powerful men in Hollywood who are accused of different forms of harassment and misconduct. Over time, we have seen the career downfall of entertainers such as Harvey Weinstein, R. Kelly, Diddy, James Franco, Bill Cosby, Kevin Spacey, Dan Schneider, and Kanye West. But has their depravity and their supposed cancellation truly changed the way we as consumers engage with their art? How and why should their poor decision-making change the way we as fans embrace films like Pulp Fiction, produced by Weinstein's company Miramax, or sing and dance to songs like Step in the Name of Love, Flashing Lights, or I'll Be Missing You, or watch impactful movies and shows like 127 Hours, House of Cards, or our favorite childhood shows like the Nickelodeon show All That, or The Cosby Show, or how we engage with our community on platforms such as X that has increasingly become toxic as of late due to its new ownership. Lately, the question of what we as consumers and fans should do with the art made by morally corrupt men has continued to persist due to the every so often unprovoked hateful rant or public appearance made by Kanye West the past couple of years. As we all know, Kanye, who now goes by simply Ye, has always been outspoken and at times uncomfortably candid about his viewpoints, even if it has resulted in the president publicly condemning his behavior.
Nice person. She's getting her award. What's he doing?
Why would he do that?
He's a jackass.
Second, this is a second important tip. Saying that you have a beautiful, dark, twisted fantasy. That's what's known as off message in politics. You can't say something like that. There are a lot of people who've lost their congressional seats saying things like that. You don't do that. That's number 2.
But over the past few years, especially since his 2018 infamous and insidious "slavery was a choice" comments, Kanye has leaned heavily into various forms of hate speech by antagonizing whichever racial or religious group that is weighing heavy on his mind that morning. Kanye's timeline of problematic remarks is a lengthy one. From comparing himself to Hitler, to saying racism is a dated concept, or that slavery was a choice, to posting defamatory tweets about his then-wife Kim Kardashian regarding her parenting skills, to appearing at his Yeezy Season 9 fashion show, showcasing his line of White Lives Matter t-shirts, to his continuous anti-Semitic rhetoric on social media, to mocking singer Cassie's assault video at the hands of Diddy, and more recently with his essay lawsuit and public appearances with his wife, Bianca Censori, where she is predictably and consistently half naked in every room she enters, Kanye is doing his very best audition to get canceled. Kanye's behavior over the years has undoubtedly become increasingly disturbing, and his actions were initially excused and forgiven due to Kanye grieving his beloved mother who died in 2007, as he was simply a son acting out due to grief. Though I am not discrediting the overwhelming feeling of grief and the impact it has to upend the emotional state of a person permanently, that excuse has followed Kanye for years, to the point that his hardcore fans used it whenever Kanye said the most deplorable statement. Recently, Kanye admitted that he has not only bipolar disorder, but autism as well. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a psychologist to explain the impact these disorders have on the psyche, but what I will say is that Kanye has literally done everything in his power to push his fans away and sour any type of goodwill people had in the nostalgic legacy of wanting the old Kanye back. Kanye has been working relentlessly to taint the memory of the old Kanye we grew to love and champion as a musical genius. But now that I think of it, the label of being a genius seems to be why it is so challenging for fans to reconcile with the badness of his offenses and the greatness of his work. I have been reading the book Monsters, A Fan's Dilemma by author Claire Dederer, And she really does an incredible job at addressing the complex moral predicament everyday people face when dealing with what she categorizes as a monster. In this context, Claire defines a monster as someone whose behavior disrupts our ability to apprehend the work on its own terms. This dilemma is further heightened when we are faced with artists or entertainers who have been regarded as a genius in their craft. One of the most infamous and notable artists of a lifetime, Pablo Picasso, is yet another extraordinary figure whose fame and notoriety has outshined his years of predatory affairs and abuse towards the women in his life. Picasso, who once said, "Women is a machine for suffering. For me, there are only two types of women, goddesses and doormats." Out of the many used and abused women in Pablo Picasso's life, French painter Françoise Gallot was the only one to speak in detail about her decade-long relationship with him in her 1964 memoir, Life with Picasso. She wrote about the brutal abuse she faced from Pablo. Not only physically, but he destroyed her possessions and artwork, and she was essentially forced out of the art world due to her exposing the misogynistic and womanizing ways of Pablo, as he held an extreme amount of power in the art industry. In the book Monsters, A Fan's Dilemma by author Claire Dederer, the author states how we allow geniuses to give in to his impulses. He is said to have demons, as demons are the cousins to artistic impulse. Great art can only be made with the help of demons, and the demons can push you to insanity. I believe this level of insanity has become accepted and embraced as an inherent element of being an artist or a rock star with a wild side, in which rock stars' recklessness is tolerated as being a creative requires slipping outside the lines of societal conformity. When asked in a 2007 interview with Rolling Stone about being a rap star, Kanye denounced that label and embraced his position as a rock star instead by saying, "I am a rock star because rock stars don't need security and I could go to dinner and chill. Rock stars can speak well or hop on a plane to Paris if they feel like it. Rock stars can catch cabs, they don't need entourages, and they don't have to pop out of limos all the time. Rock stars can wear the same clothes every day, they could get their shoes dirty, and they don't need a effing haircut. Rock stars could pull their out in public and they could go rock 20,000 people. Rock stars have a wife and kids. Rock stars do the drugs that they want and they could get over drugs, or they don't get over drugs and it F's them up. Rock stars could get their effing opinion without having to deal with, what's that thing I dealt with every day of my life? Oh yeah, backlash." Towards the end of his statement, Kanye subtly acknowledges the limited freedom and immunity that is given to him versus his white counterparts. This wide scope of behavioral liberties has been historically granted to not just any celebrity, but to rock stars and geniuses of their craft to engage in whatever contradictory and inconsistent act they so please. Because why? They are a genius and have earned the reward to break the rules and push the boundaries because it is solely a part of their creative process. It begs the question of if we have irresponsibly assigned the label of genius to certain stars as a way to quell the internal alarm bells so that we do not have to feel any guilt for continuing to enjoy the art by a problematic figure. An insightful point that I rarely see highlighted that the author Claire brilliantly highlights is a crucial element that complicates the hardships of coming to terms with the shortcomings of a favorite artist or their piece of work. Claire says that biography is used to describe something you sought out, yearned for, or actively pursued, but now it falls on your head all day long. She goes on to say that artists' life stories are not the only biographies that affect how their work is received. Claire Dederer sees every encounter with a work of art as a potential clash between two biographies: the biography of the artist that might disrupt the viewing of the art, and the biography of the audience member that might shape the viewing of the art. We are truly in the golden age of biographical moments, whether it's through memoirs or biopics, and it is inescapable for fans, critics, or consumers to avoid the reality of information overload being presented to us. I remember when the NWA biopic Straight Outta Compton was released in 2015. I went into the film knowing barely anything about the hip-hop supergroup, other than surface-level information about Ice Cube's acting career, Dr. Dre's legacy as a producer, and Eazy-E's unfortunate premature death. After watching the movie, which I thought was amazing, I became a newfound belated fan to Dr. Dre specifically. But then a year later in 2016, I was presented with a Lifetime Network response film, Surviving Compton, Dre, Suge, and Michel'le, in which it was made given the significant omission of singer Michel'le's involvement in the life of Dr. Dre, as the two were in a relationship and she became a victim at the hands of Dr. Dre's violent abuse. This situation, along with the other story of Dr. Dre violently attacking VJ D. Barnes in 1991, was brought to my attention and swiftly tainted my outlook on Dr. Dre. Though Dr. Dre issued a public apology many years later, I was and still am in disbelief how someone who clearly has a documented history of abuse could continue to receive such reverence and honors to the point where there is a whole Grammy Award named after him. It causes me to ponder, why does he still get the respect and acknowledgement, whereas others, such as a Chris Brown for instance, is still shunned from industry events? Why does one man receive forgiveness while the other has essentially been exiled from A-list events? That is an answer still unknown. Though each man has shown public remorse and still maintain a legion of fans, The growing nature of parasocial relationships with celebrities has grown greater and greater each year, to the point that some fans believe they share a real emotional connection with the artists whose work they adore. Philosopher Shoshana Zuboff explains the phenomenon of behavioral future markets, in which in this context, those who participate in parasocial relationships are workers creating money for somebody else. Personally, that is the main struggle I have found the most difficult when being confronted with new biographical information of an artist who has done something morally heinous. You wonder if you stream this song or album that was once the soundtrack of your life, are you putting coins back into that person's pocket? If you rewatch their show or movie, are you still showing support towards that person's work that at one point resonated deeply with you and was a sense of comfort? What does it say of you as a person if you feel betrayed by this artist whose flawed biography does not align with their flawless work of art? How do we as fans contend with that problem? Playwright and political activist Pearl Clage perfectly addresses this conflicting feeling in her book Mad at Miles, A Black Woman's Guide to Truth, released in 1990. In her book, Pearl writes about the evolution of her relationship with the music of jazz singer and composer Miles Davis. Pearl details her introduction as well as her intimate yet complicated experience with Miles Davis' music as his records, particularly his 1959 album, Kinda Blue, which is the best-selling and most influential jazz album ever made, became a euphoric, intimate, and emotional transportation of love for Pearl, especially coming off of a divorce from a 10-year marriage. Pearl described being in love with Miles, his music, how he made her feel, and the specific experience of the emotional journey that she endured in which Miles was able to capture. When Pearl learned of Miles' history of physical abuse against his wives, Frances Davis and Cicely Tyson, and Miles' autobiography, the newfound knowledge of his biography damaged the image Pearl had of Miles in her head. She took this information personally and was understandably betrayed. As an African-American woman who is a survivor of abuse as well, Pearl posed a few questions. How could they hit us and still be our heroes, our leaders, our husbands? Can we make love to the rhythms of a little early Miles when he may have spent the morning of the day he recorded the music slapping one of our sisters in the mouth? Can we continue to celebrate the genius in the face of the monster? At the end of the day, it is what the fan is able to contend with and what they are willing to accept despite the deplorable nature of the crime. 20 years later, Pearl Clage was asked in an interview if people should continue to feel guilty about continuing to listen to Miles Davis' work. Pearl said, "No, you should not feel guilty. Miles is dead, and I will confess that I was never able to give up listening to his album Kind of Blue myself either." All in all, you are probably wondering if I actually answered the question of if we could truly separate the art from the artist. Personally, the truth is that it is impossible to separate the art from the artist. Mainly, it is because artists are their art, and to remove an artist from their work leaves it to be meaningless. Every single thing they create is an extension of who they are and a glimpse into their identity and values. And sadly, on some occasions, their art gives artists a platform to showcase their degenerate behavior. As a fan, it is natural to form an emotional bond with a piece of art. Whether it's through a TV show or an album that created a nostalgic, meaningful experience for you at a certain point in your life, you can't just Control-Alt-Delete that subjective experience due to the public condemnation of an artist. After all, this dilemma depends on the artist, the nature of their actions, and the consumer's personal values. Some people can compartmentalize while others find it impossible, and neither side is wrong for how they approach this crossroad. Whether it is David Bowie, R. Kelly, Chris Brown, John Lennon, Dr. Dre, Miles Davis, Pablo Picasso, Kanye West, David Foster, or Woody Allen, and so many more, the biography of these men, intertwined with your own biography and lived experience, is largely going to answer the question of how you intend to balance the love and appreciation for the arts while contending with the undeniable moral monstrosities. Please let me know in the comments what are your thoughts on the conversation of separating the art from the artist. Be honest, whose art have you found it difficult to let go despite allegations of immoral behavior? Who are examples of people you have had to unquestionably remove from your life, playlist, or watch list in the aftermath of their scandals? In what situations do you feel like the person in the action should be forgiven? Or does it all depend on the circumstance? Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn your notification bell, and I'll see you next time.